Hey there, y'all. It's your boy Archie, and today I have a quick tutorial. Now, before we start, I just want to note that I may stutter a bit or kind of pause a little bit sometimes because I have very bad social anxiety, which I am currently working on. And one of the reasons why I decided to start making tutorials is to help myself deal with that. So, anyways, today's tutorial is based around cell shading, and I'm going to show you an easy method that works with nearly any digital illustration program. Now, I'm using Krita specifically, but you can use pretty much any illustration program that you want for this. So I'm just going to toggle this little top layer here, and you're going to get a general idea of how I do my cell shading. I call this layer the shading guidelines because this is where I map out where all the shadows are going to be. And how I get started is that if my light source is not in the drawing, then I draw a little arrow indicating where I want my light to be coming from. Now, in this little drawing specifically, the light is coming from the top, which means that the shadows are going to be heavier towards bottom things, which you can see especially well below the hairline here, on the sleeves over here, and below her little belt over here. So, and also, if we were to go with a different light, so have our light coming from a different source, for example, hold on, keep in mind that my smoothing tool, let me just adjust my smoothing tool here. Something closer what I usually use. If our light was coming from over here, for example, then our shadows would of course be opposite of that light source. So since it's coming from the left side, then our shadows would be heavier on the right, sort of like this. Again, this is not how I draw shadows normally. I'm just kind of drawing random lines to get the point across, just for demonstration purposes. And then I highly recommend that you do this layer in a different color than your ink. For example, I use black for my ink. And then I also use white lines where the black overlaps. So because of that, I usually do my shading guidelines in this sort of medium blue. And then I usually do my sketches in a light blue when I sketch digitally. So, and it's also crucial to have your shading guidelines on a separate layer from your ink and from your color. Otherwise, it's just going to mess everything up. So I usually put my shading guidelines above my ink layer, but you can put it below your ink layer too. So anyway, like these little lines here, the guidelines, these mark either where the shadows are going to be or where the light are going to be. This is what separates the light from the shadows. And let me show you how I color with these things. Keep in mind that these colors, I'm just picking them for demonstration purposes. These are not the final colors that I'm using in this drawing. I'm just picking random colors off the color wheel. Say we want to color this shirt in this little purple right here. We go down to the color layer, and we're just going to fill in the shirt with the fill bucket. And you could use this method with the brush tool if you want, but it works best if you're coloring it with fill bucket. And then to do the shadows, we toggle the visibility of the shading guidelines layer. And then we select a darker shade of purple. And we just go in for a little fill bucket tool. And we fill in the areas, these little white areas that mark where our shadows are going to be. And also you notice that sometimes you'll get like these very thin lines that are hard to color with the fill bucket tool. So what I usually do is that I create a new layer below my color layer. And then I just kind of go over it with a brush tool, sort of like this. Just kind of go over it with a brush tool, and then I'll switch to the top layer and like adjust this little, you can see how See how it gets like really thick up here and then there's a little break and then it gets really thin and that just looks awkward and unnatural. So I'll go in and fix this, but I'm not going to do that right now because again, this is not the final color of these. I'm just doing this all for demonstration purposes. So, and then I'm just going to show you one more time to make sure y'all understand everything. So let's say, I don't know, we want to color our vest like this little green color here. Go in, select that, go in a color layer, and just fill everything in with this little green color. And then if we to add the shadows, we just toggle the visibility of our shading guidelines. And then we just go in and we fill in the little white areas that mark where we want our shadows. And that's it. That's all you have to do to cell shade using this method. This is one of my favorite methods because it's really quick, really easy, and it's just, it just saves me a lot of time. It's a lot easier than having to go over my flat color on a new layer. It just saves me a lot of time, and it also gives me more freedom when it comes to planning my drawing because it kind of allows me to plan where I want my light source ahead of time. And anyways, I just thought I'd show off this. Method again because I think it's really cool and it's really easy for beginners. And also, I know I made another cell shading tutorial. I think it was about a year or so back, maybe a year and a half, but that one didn't come out very well or explain my point very well. So I figured I'd remake it to get my point across better. Anyway, sorry I'm so socially awkward, and I hope that you at least found this tutorial a little bit helpful, and I hope y'all have a fantastic day. Anyways, goodbye.